Hi, I'm Lenin, and for my book talk, I'm going to review the book, which is the biography of Lenin. So basically, the reason I even started reading the book was I was trying to find something to kill time during the quarantine period. So I chose to read something boring, of course, other than playing games. And surprisingly, as I read along, the book seemed more interesting. So an overview of the book. This book is called Lenin, and it's written by Victor Sebastian, and it basically describes the life of Lenin, basically as his childhood, what may have inspired him to follow to do the things he did, which I will talk about later, and also about how he was inspired by the communist and socialist teachings of Karl Marx, and how it inspired him to lead workers in a revolution against the Tsar Empire in Russia and start the Russian Revolution in 1917. Uh, it talks about his role as a planner for worker strikes against against the Tsarist government, as they were really oppressive against the people, not giving them any workers' rights, enslaving many people to the bourgeois, basically the middle class, enslaving the lower class, which in Karl Marx's book is called the proletarians. So basically, at first it's a movement to fight for the workers' human rights, but slowly it divulges into so-called Soviet identity, especially the more specific party which he is in, the Bolsheviks. They're really a far left extremist radical movement which believes in the total socialization of the government, where all the forms of businesses are controlled by the government rather than uh, bourgeois middle class people. So basically, not only does he gain the support of many of the people, he systematically eliminates opponents in the Soviet Party, the larger party, of course. To be more specific, is in the Bolsheviks. He eliminates the Mensheviks and finally eliminates if I'm correct, it was called the Soviet Revolutionaries, giving the Bolsheviks the ultimate, giving the Bolsheviks the lead in the Soviet Party against the provisional government. It also talks about his role, of course, uh, in leading the fight and taking a coup against the provisional government, which was set up after the Tsar abdicated his throne. Uh, Due to threats, and he knew that he couldn't handle the outcry and riots and strikes by the workers, and of course the participation in World War One, which I won't dive and spoil it. So it also talks about his leadership of the early Soviet Union, of course before that it was called the Russian FSSR, and how he did a semi-dictatorship, not as bad as Stalin, but still unjustified, for killing many political opponents. But really talks about his legacy, how his form of Marxist-Leninism inspired many other revolutions around the world, and really allowed capitalist countries to fear a similar revolution, and making them decide to give workers more rights. So really, it's not only about what he did in the Soviet Union, but what he did all around the world. So for the introduction, for the passage I'm going to read that really describes his legacy, it is quite long. It may take up too much time in my video. On one side of Moscow's Red Square, there remains a sight familiar to anyone who knew the late Soviet Union in the communist years. Every day, long lines of people queue patiently for a ticket to visit Lenin's mausoleum. Set within a huge marble plinth erected in the late 1920s, the wait can last an age, tour itself just moments. Visitors enter a basement and walk along a bare corridor for a few meters in a eerie semi-darkness before reaching the coffin. Powerful lights illuminate the embalmed body, which has been lying in this tomb on plush red velvet for more than 90 years. There is such a crush of people that they are given a maximum of 5 minutes to pay their respects, or simply a gawp. A few of the visitors are foreigners, the vast majority are Russians. It is a macabre place to go sightseeing in the 21st century, whoever's entombed there. But 2.5 decades after the collapse of the USSR, it seems the strangest of anachronisms that Vladimir Ilyich Lenin can continue to draw such crowds. Everyone knows that the havoc he wreaked. Few people now believe in the faith he espoused, yet he still commands attention, even affection, in Russia. So basically, let me just give an overview of this. It just says that the irony that despite the fact that many people know that is responsible of elimination of opponents, causing mass famines, of course nothing compared to Stalin, by forcing farmers to give a certain amount of their food, actually around 90% of their food, as a form of tax, and really causing a lot of famines. But it yet says that the legacy he left, the fact that he had the power to bring down the Tsar, who had been in power for hundreds of years, really strike deep into the Russian people's heart, and somehow they are proud of it. Of course, there may be other factors like propaganda, censorship of the USSR before 1991, but I mean, I think it really just describes the effect and the legacy he has left behind for the Russian people. And of course, now I just why do I recommend this book? And firstly, yes, I do recommend this book. If you are interested and you want to boost in your history lessons, I think this book really describes, especially for modern world history, this book really describes a more detailed explanation, not only into Lenin's life and why he did the things he did, but really the overall history of Russia surrounding the Russian Revolution, the early stages of the USSR as a superpower, and of course and Lenin leading his revolution and whatnot. But if you hate history, then this book would just be a boring sheets of paper. So it's quite a nice book. The two book talks I liked really were Sean and Caden. Sean's was a long, detailed, and really insightful book talk, and for Caden it was short and sweet. And sorry, of course, for the late submission. I was really occupied with certain things. So yeah, thank you, Mr. Butterfield.